In this video, I'm going to rank 15 of Europe's most famous day trips and tell you which ones are worth every penny, which ones are total tourist traps, and which ones fall somewhere in between. Because when you're on vacation, the attraction itself is only part of the equation. Some of these day trips take less than an hour to reach, while others involve a full day on trains or buses. So I'll be looking at the whole experience, the cost, the travel time, the crowds, and whether I'd actually recommend spending one of your precious vacation days doing it. I'm Roger from priceoftravel.com, and let's start with Stonehenge. Stonehenge is probably Europe's most famous day trip, and it's about 2 hours west of London. You can get there by train and local bus, but most visitors book a coach tour that includes Windsor Castle, the beautiful city of Bath, or both. The good news is that Stonehenge really does look like Stonehenge. The giant prehistoric stones are genuinely impressive in person, and when I visited again not long ago, I enjoyed it much more than I expected. The bad news is that admission is now around $42, and even though it's one of the world's most famous monuments, you're still only looking at a circle of stones in a field. So my verdict is worth it if. If you've always wanted to see Stonehenge, you'll probably enjoy it, but I think it's best as part of a larger day that also includes Bath or Windsor Castle. If I had to spend an entire vacation day and over $100 just to see Stonehenge and come right back to London, I'd probably pass. If you're visiting Cornwall in the southwest of England, one of the most popular day trips is Land's End, the westernmost point of southern Britain. The official website calls it one of Britain's best-loved landmarks, and judging by the number of tour buses that stop here, plenty of people seem to agree, although I don't know how many people visit twice. The problem is that while Land's End looks dramatic in photos, there's actually not much there once you arrive. It's basically a large gift shop, a couple of restaurants, a hotel with a decent view, and some cliffs overlooking the ocean. I visited as part of an all-day coach tour around Cornwall, and it was easily the least interesting stop of the day. So this one gets my first total tourist trap verdict. The scenery is nice enough, but Cornwall is full of beautiful coastal views, charming villages, and spectacular beaches that offer a much better experience. If you're already driving past, sure, stop for a few minutes and take a photo, but I definitely wouldn't build an entire day around visiting Land's End. Pisa is one of Italy's most popular day trips, especially for visitors staying in Florence. The regional train takes about an hour each way and costs around $12 each direction, making it one of the easiest and cheapest day trips on this list. Strange as it may sound, the city of Pisa itself doesn't offer many major tourist sites beyond the famous Field of Miracles, which is home to the Leaning Tower of Pisa. But honestly, that's okay because the tower is exactly what most people came to see. You can walk around the grounds for free, visit the beautiful cathedral next door for free, and of course take your own version of the famous goofy Leaning Tower photo. You can also climb the tower itself for around $23, which I talked about in my recent video ranking Europe's top attractions. Even though I wasn't especially impressed with the view from the top, I still rate Pisa as worth every penny. The train ride is quick, the cost is reasonable, and you can easily be back in Florence in time for lunch. Next up is Pompeii, the ancient Roman city that was buried by volcanic ash from Mount Vesuvius nearly 2,000 years ago. It's a popular day trip from Rome, though it's much easier to visit from Naples or Sorrento, which is where I'd stay if I also wanted to explore the Amalfi Coast. This is actually the last destination that appears on both this list and my recent ranking of Europe's top attractions. It won't surprise many viewers that this one gets a strong worth every penny verdict. Admission is only about $23, the site is enormous, and it's one of those places that feels both shocking and impressive at the same time. If you've never been, Pompeii absolutely deserves a place on your itinerary. Now let's head to the Austrian Alps and the postcard-perfect village of Hallstatt. This tiny lakeside town has become one of Europe's most famous day trips, with visitors arriving from Vienna in about 3 hours each way, or Salzburg in about 2 hours each way. Hallstatt is a tricky one because it's become as much of an Instagram destination as a travel destination. The setting is undeniably beautiful, but for many visitors, the main goal is getting that famous photo of the village reflected in the lake. There's also a historic salt mine to visit, but the scenery is the main attraction. So this one gets a worth it if verdict. Hallstatt is absolutely gorgeous, but it takes a lot of time and effort to reach. It's often crowded, and there are similar Austrian lake villages that are easier to visit, less expensive, and much less crowded. St. Wolfgang is one good example. If you've always dreamed of seeing Hallstatt, you'll probably enjoy it, but if you're simply looking for a beautiful alpine village, there are better options. Start spreading the news because our next stop is Sintra, just outside of Lisbon. This is by far the most popular day trip from Portugal's capital, and unlike some famous day trips, I think the hype is fully justified. Sintra is a small medieval town and UNESCO World Heritage Site tucked into the hills about 45 minutes from Lisbon by train. It's best known for the colorful Pena Palace, but there are several other fascinating palaces, castles, gardens, and estates scattered throughout the area. Each attraction has its own admission fee, but most are quite reasonable by European standards. The train from Lisbon only takes about 45 minutes each way and costs around $3, making this one of the easiest and cheapest day trips on this list. And unlike some places where the famous photo is the main attraction, Sintra offers enough sights to easily fill a full day. For me, this one gets a clear worth every penny verdict and should probably be built into your Lisbon itinerary from the beginning. Now let's head to southern Germany for a trip to Neuschwanstein Castle, one of the most famous castles in the world and the inspiration for Disney's Sleeping Beauty Castle. It's a little over 2 hours from Munich by train and bus, making it another full-day excursion. Like Hallstatt, Neuschwanstein is partly an Instagram destination. The famous views of the castle perched above the forests and lakes of Bavaria are every bit as impressive in person as they are in photos, and the surrounding scenery is a big part of the appeal. The castle tour costs about $27, and while I'd still recommend going inside, I don't think the interior is nearly as impressive as the exterior. So this one gets a worth it if verdict. If you've always wanted to see one of Europe's most famous castles, you'll probably enjoy it. But between the travel time, the admission cost, and the crowds, it's worth considering what else you could do with that day in Munich before making the trip. Not far away is another popular day trip option from Munich or even Frankfurt. It's the beautifully preserved medieval walled town of Rothenburg ob der Tauber. From Munich, the journey takes about 2.5 hours each way, making this another full-day commitment. Fortunately, Rothenburg is one of the most charming small towns in Europe. The medieval walls, towers, cobblestone streets, and colorful half-timbered buildings make it feel like you've stepped into a fairy tale. This one definitely gets a worth every penny verdict from me, but I think many visitors make a mistake by treating it as a day trip. Summer hotel rooms often start around $150 per night, and staying over allows you to enjoy the town before the day trippers arrive and after they leave. It also gives you the chance to join the Night Watchman's Tour, which is one of the best walking tours I've ever taken. So yes, Rothenburg is worth the day trip, but it's even better as an overnight stay. Next, let's head to Normandy in France, to a place that many viewers couldn't believe I left off my recent video ranking Europe's most famous attractions. Mont Saint-Michel is one of France's most iconic landmarks, and it's easy to see why. Rising from a tiny island in a vast bay, this historic abbey and monastery complex is one of the most photogenic structures in the world. It's also one of the most popular day trips from Paris, though getting there is not especially easy. The journey takes about 3 hours each way by train and bus, and transportation can easily cost around $80 per person round trip. Admission to the abbey itself is about $18. My verdict is worth it if. Mont Saint-Michel is definitely not a tourist trap, but between the transportation costs and the 6-hour round-trip journey, you should think carefully about whether it's the best use of a vacation day that could be otherwise spent exploring Paris itself. If seeing one of the world's most famous landmarks has been on your bucket list, you'll probably love it. Next up is Iceland's famous Golden Circle, which is probably the most popular day trip in the country. If you find yourself with a free day on your first visit to Iceland, it's usually a choice between the Golden Circle and the Blue Lagoon, and for me, the Golden Circle wins. This scenic 190-mile loop takes you through some of Iceland's most famous natural attractions, including Thingvellir National Park, the geothermal area including the original geyser that gave all other geysers their name, and the powerful Gullfoss waterfall. You can do the route on a guided bus tour, but I'd recommend renting a car if possible so you can avoid some of the crowds. This one gets a clear worth every penny verdict. The major stops are all impressive, the scenery between them is spectacular, and the route provides a great introduction to what makes Iceland so special. The only downside is that it will probably make you wish you had more time to explore the rest of the country. Back in Italy, let's head over to the Cinque Terre, a collection of 5 colorful fishing villages perched along one of the most beautiful stretches of coastline in Europe. From Florence, the journey takes about 2.5 hours on affordable regional trains, making this one of Italy's most popular day trips. The villages are connected by trains, and when conditions allow, scenic hiking trails above the Mediterranean. The combination of colorful buildings, tiny harbors, and dramatic coastline creates a setting that rivals even the Amalfi Coast for sheer beauty. The only real downside is that you'll be sharing those views with plenty of other visitors, especially during the summer months. Even so, Cinque Terre easily earns a worth every penny verdict from me. Like Rothenburg though, I think it's even better as an overnight trip. Once the day trippers leave in the late afternoon, the villages become noticeably quieter and more enjoyable. Vernazza is probably the most striking of the five, and you can often find reasonably priced hotels there if you'd like to experience Cinque Terre at its best. Next up is Toledo, Spain's classic day trip from Madrid. Direct trains leave roughly every hour and reach Toledo in just 34 minutes, making this one of the easiest excursions on the entire list. The historic center sits on a hill above the surrounding countryside and is packed with churches, old city gates, museums, viewpoints, and winding medieval streets. Toledo was once one of Spain's most important cities, and that history is everywhere you look. It's also a pleasant contrast with Madrid itself, feeling much smaller, older, and more atmospheric. This one gets an easy, worth every penny verdict. The train ride is quick, tickets are reasonably priced, and there's more than enough to keep you busy for a half day or longer. If you find yourself with a spare day in Madrid, Toledo is one of the most rewarding and least complicated day trips you can take. Next up is the stunning mountaintop collection of monasteries known as Meteora, one of the most spectacular sights in Greece. Like Mont Saint-Michel, this is a place that almost seems impossible when you first see it in photos, and somehow it's even more impressive in person. The monasteries sit atop towering rock pillars that rise dramatically above the surrounding valleys. Visitors can tour several of them for a small admission fee, but the real attraction is taking in one of the most remarkable landscapes in Europe. This one gets a strong worth every penny verdict from me, but there is one major catch. Most visitors coming from Athens book an all-day excursion that lasts around 14 hours, with roughly 9 of those hours spent getting there and back. That's a huge commitment, but unlike some destinations on this list, I think the payoff justifies the effort. Next up is Northern Ireland's most famous attraction, the unusual coastal rock formations known as Giant's Causeway. It's a very popular day trip from Belfast, which is only a little over an hour away, and it's also a common excursion from Dublin, though that involves closer to 3 hours each way. You can visit on an organized coach tour, but I'd recommend renting a car if possible. Northern Ireland has beautiful countryside and several worthwhile stops along the coast, so the journey can become part of the experience. If seeing these famous basalt columns in person looks interesting to you, this one is absolutely worth every penny. Admission is free, there are excellent hiking trails along the coastline, and even a ruined castle nearby. The rock formations are genuinely unusual, and unlike some famous day trips, the payoff is high while the cost is relatively low. And finally, let's head to the Scottish Highlands for a day trip that probably shouldn't be packaged the way it usually is. Many organized tours combine a visit to the spectacular Isle of Skye with a stop at the famous, or perhaps infamous, Loch Ness. The Isle of Skye portion is absolutely worth every penny. The dramatic mountains, rugged coastline, waterfalls, and tiny villages make it one of the most beautiful places in the United Kingdom, and it's easy to understand why so many visitors consider it a highlight of their trip to Scotland. Loch Ness, on the other hand, gets a total tourist trap verdict from me. The loch itself is perfectly pleasant, but it's not especially dramatic compared to the rest of the Highlands. The main attraction is the legend of the Loch Ness Monster, and the visitor center and gift shop complex feels surprisingly cheesy and underwhelming. If possible, I'd look for a tour that focuses on Skye and minimizes the Loch Ness portion. One is one of Europe's great day trips, the other is famous mostly because of a monster story. So those were 15 of Europe's most famous day trips, and my verdict on each one. Most of them are genuinely memorable and worth the effort, but a few are worth thinking twice about when you consider the cost, the crowds, and the fact that some of them require an entire day just to get there and back. I'm sure many of you disagree with at least a few of my choices, so let me know in the comments which ones I got wrong and which famous day trips I should have included. There are plenty of others that almost made this list, and your suggestions might even inspire a follow-up video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.